I was purposely avoiding this whole Jimmy Butler conversation. I did a couple videos already, but it seems like every single time I pick up my phone, there's a new notification, some type of report coming out with Jimmy Butler, whether it's a suspension or somebody saying that he missed a practice or flight, taking his own flights to games, whatever the case is. But this conversation itself, it was a good one because it went into whose fault is it? Is it Jimmy Butler or Pat Riley, Miami Heat, the organization? Who looks worse in this situation? Kind of similar to what Inside the NBA was getting into an argument about, where Shaq took the side of Butler and said he's an older player, he should want his money, and if they're not giving him the money, then he has every right to do what he's doing now. And Barkley and them were saying, nah, it looks unprofessional. So without further ado, I'm going to get into this clip and react to what Stephen A., Brian Windhorst, and Shannon Sharpe had to say. All right, let's go.
The Heat are trying to make it happen. They have backed down on their asks to teams that they had 2-3 weeks ago when this whole saga really started. They're willing to do more. And I think that there is really a chance now that more teams, I think, are going to wade in here because the price on Butler is going to be lower than just the Phoenix Suns, which is the way it's been. I don't think any of the top teams are going to get him. I think you're looking at teams that are in the middle of the pack, older teams, teams that need a Hail Mary right now, that may be looking at whether they can acquire him.
To the point that Brian was making about Jimmy Butler's value decreasing and now you have more teams that are interested in him, I think that was the most obvious outcome that was about to happen. If you look at Jimmy Butler's game this year, he's averaging 17 points per game, which is his lowest since his third year in the NBA when he was with the Chicago Bulls. His minutes per game is also the lowest it's been since his second year in the league with the Bulls as well. If you're trying to trade a guy, you want to put him out there and make him look as good as possible. However, that's not the case. If you look in the Eastern Conference alone, among the forward positions, Jimmy Butler is ranked 38 in usage rate. And he has a huge contract, making a lot more money than all the other guys ahead of him, yet he's not getting the ball and being able to showcase his skill. But when he does, he's shooting over 50% from the field. So yeah, you got to advertise the product and what it's able to do, in this case, metaphorically speaking, Jimmy Butler. And secondly, when Brian talks about a middle-of-the-pack team, predicting one of those kind of teams is going to get Butler, I'm very surprised to hear that because the Miami Heat themselves are really a middle-of-the-pack team. They're in 6th place in the East right now, just around the 500 mark. If you're a team and you trade for Butler, it's going to be the same outcome to me. Why trade your assets away just to stay in the same position?
I don't think a middle-of-the-road team would want Jimmy Butler or should want him, because I think that in this particular instance, you know, he's proven to be a bit truculent. I'm not saying that to dismiss him or to insult him. I'm saying what he has intended to do purposefully. I'm more interested in Miami. What's interesting is Miami, because of the first-class organization that they are, their locale, it's supposed to be an attractive destination. It's one thing if Jimmy Butler departs because he says, you didn't want to pay me my money, and that's that. If it comes to a point where Jimmy Butler becomes a bit more outspoken, and dare I say, he starts complaining about a culture that we've all revered and held in high regard all of these years, and he tries to paint a different picture about the culture in Miami, then we start looking at LeBron walking out the door. Then we're going to look at Kevin Durant and how he didn't end up there. Then we're going to look at Damian Lillard and how he wanted to get there, but Miami couldn't get him there.
Let's go over Jimmy Butler's career very quickly to assess the term Stephen A. used in saying that he's truculent. In his early years with the Chicago Bulls, he ended up becoming a star player, and with Derrick Rose having some injuries, they just really wanted to go into a rebuilding situation. He ends up getting traded. He goes to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and you guys remember all of those reports about him thinking Karl-Anthony Towns was soft, and then there was a practice where he used the bench players and beat the starters. So there was a lot of tension going on there. He ends up moving on to the Philadelphia 76ers. A little bit of the same reports, him not maybe getting along with teammates. And then there was the whole Tobias Harris over me. Y'all remember that when he was going through the tunnel area after a game where the Miami Heat eliminated the Philadelphia 76ers from the playoffs, and he was letting them know y'all chose financially to give Tobias Harris a contract and put him as a priority over trying to get me back on the team. Now, with the whole Miami Heat culture thing that Stephen A. was bringing up, I think even us as fans are very aware of what it is, so I imagine that players are even more in the know when it comes to what happens when you go to that team, how Pat Riley runs that whole organization. I don't think it's a shock or any new revelations that is happening with Jimmy Butler, and you will hear Shannon Sharpe make that point in a bit as well. Let's continue.
Stephen A., look, I might want to leave somewhere, but I'm not willing to give up $10, $15 million to do it. And I think the thing is, when you go to the Heat, it's like going to the Patriots, Stephen A. You know what you're getting into. I mean, why is it so different? You know you don't run. Pat Riley runs the Heat with an iron fist. And I get what Jimmy says, I want my money. What Pat Riley is saying, I don't see the upside. He said, I can't give you 120, a two-year extension based on what you've done. I got to give you 120 million based on what I believe you can do. But I just think Jimmy has handled this really, really poorly, and it looks bad on him. I believe it looks worse on him than it does Pat Riley.
What Shannon Sharpe is describing is a situation that I've seen happen so many times within the NBA and probably other sports as well, where you have a star player, a coveted player that's on the team. He's been there for a long time, very loyal, and he's looking at it like, yo, pay me what you could give me. Whatever the highest amount is or near it, I want that money based off of what I did for you. And the team is looking at it like, well, we can't give you that because we don't feel like the output, your skill level, where you're at moving forward is going to be beneficial to match that money that you're asking for. And that is exactly what happened with the Miami Heat and Dwayne Wade, where he left for a year and he went to the Chicago Bulls. Wade was looking at it like, everything I did for the Miami Heat, I took pay cuts as well, and you're offering me this kind of money. I don't even think Wade wanted a max at the time, but he definitely wanted something more than what they were offering. As a result, he felt slighted and he ended up leaving. And Pat Riley himself admitted that he didn't handle that situation right with Dwayne Wade. In this case, though, you hear Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharpe both echoing that Jimmy Butler looks a lot worse than the way the Miami Heat as an organization and Pat Riley have been handling this scenario. There was a tweet that Paul Pierce put out on X where he said, which superstar would want to even go to the Miami Heat based off of this whole ordeal and the way they've been treating Jimmy Butler. So it goes both ways. You got some players or some people in the media that may think that Butler looks worse, or others who are looking at the Miami Heat organization and saying, no, it's y'all fault in the way that this culture has been built on. I ask you, the viewers who are listening right now, whose side are you on? If you're asking me personally, I'm not sure. And I hate to give such a neutral answer, but when I look at both parties involved, they are the same in terms of it's my way or the highway. They stand on what they believe in and they're not budging. That's the makeup of both of these people involved: Pat Riley, Jimmy Butler, his agent, whoever you want to throw in this mix. Like, share, and subscribe. Hit me up in the comment section. Let's get this discussion going. And as always, salute for listening. Peace.